Today is a special occasion, a very special occasion actually. If you are watching this video at the premiere, I am currently getting married. Yes, today is my wedding day, so I felt that there was only one Pokemon challenge that would be fitting of such an occasion. Today, I'm going to beat Pokemon Emerald with only a Gardevoir. Generation 3 was essentially a soft reset for the franchise featuring so many new Pokemon that all filled a lot of the niches that were previously present in Generation 1. Gardevoir, for example, is the Alakazam archetype. It's a powerful mono-psychic type with incredible special attack. As a psychic type, it is weak to 3 different typings, Dark, Bug, and Ghost, and I really have to emphasize the Dark type among these 3, just because that typing can also take no damage from Psychic type moves. And at this point in the video, I am going to just have to pause all of my explanations about Gardevoir, look over at its level up learn set, pretty much only normal and psychic type moves, and that's a problem, because I have to face youngster Calvin, and he has a Poochyena, which of course is a dark type. So the only way to deal damage to the Poochyena is going to be to deplete all of my PP. And today that is going to be particularly infuriating to do, because Growl has 40 uses, and in addition, every time I use Teleport against a wild Pokemon, I flee the battle. Anyways, I guess I should just get to this and start spamming it all out against wild Pokemon. And then the reality of what I'm trying to do sunk in. So let's go over the rules for my challenges. I can only use my starter in battle, I can't use any items in battle, I am not allowed to use any glitches or exploits, and finally I cannot use evasion boosting moves until I hit level 100. Gardevoir starts with Double Team, so I'm going to have to use it against wild Pokemon in order to obtain Struggle so that I can defeat Calvin's Poochyena. And what that means is that very technically, according to my rules, Gardevoir cannot actually complete the game. So let's just bring the tier list up. We're going to place Gardevoir in the impossible tier, and that's it. The video is done. It's time for me to go get married. So that's it. I'll see y'all in the next one. Like, subscribe, ring the chime echo so you're notified when I post my next video. And no, I'm totally kidding. Of course we are going to beat the game with Gardevoir. I'm just going to spam out Double Team. And yes, this is essentially against my rules. However, I am only using this move to deplete its PP, not to gain an advantage in the battle. So I don't really think that it is against the spirit of the challenge. Now, of course, I should mention that there is another option that is technically legal by my rules, which would be to grind on wild Pokemon in the first routes, all the way until level 42 when Gardevoir learns Future Sight. So you might be thinking, no, Scott, that won't work because it is a psychic move, it will not deal damage to Poochyena. And that is not actually true. Future Sight does not receive both the same type attack bonus, and it also does not deal damage based on type effectiveness, so it can hit Dark-type Pokemon, at least in Generation 3. Okay, so while I continue to deplete all my PP and work towards Struggle, let's talk about Gardevoir. First of all, in terms of base stats, it is essentially a more balanced Alakazam. It has 68 HP, 65 attack and defense, 125 special attack, and 115 special defense, with 80 speed. I think today it is completely obvious to give Gardevoir a modest nature. I did have to choose between its ability, either Synchronize or Trace, and in this case I think that Synchronize is a little bit better, Trace is not that good. Now, one unfortunate fact about Gardevoir being the Alakazam clone in Generation 3 is that Alakazam was way too good in Generation 1. It had the medium slow growth rate and some of the best stats and best typing in the entire game. So I think Game Freak learned from their mistake, and as a result they gave Gardevoir the slow growth rate, which is one of the worst. I haven't actually done a lot of slow growth rate Pokemon in Generation 3 though, so I'm curious how it's going to fare. And while it might not have the best growth rate, it does have a fantastic level up move pool. It starts with Confusion, a damage dealing move which is currently not useful, but it will be very soon. After that, at only level 21, it gets access to the amazing Calm Mind. And then, just 5 levels later, at level 26, it gets Psychic. From there, its level up moves are not very good. Yes, it does know Hypnosis and Dream Eater, but no, I'm not going to use them. Hypnosis is much worse after Generation 1, and even in Generation 1, it is a questionable move, as everyone likes to let me know in the comments. Now, the reason that having a strong level up learn set is important is because you can use the move reminder to get any of these moves back at any point. What this means is that I'll have access to Calm Mind, Psychic, and Hypnosis essentially whenever I want. Now through TMs and HMs, Gardevoir gets access to some other good coverage moves. I gave it Hidden Power Dark so that it has access to a move that is super effective against Psychic types. It also gets Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball, and Shockwave. It does get access to the regular Secret Power in return, but since those moves are physical, I don't actually think we're going to see them today, which is sort of refreshing. Those moves are definitely Emerald staples. Alright, so finally, I have depleted all of my PP and I'm ready to face youngster Calvin with Struggle. Because I had to spam out Confusion, I'm at least level 8 here, so my Struggle does more than half, Poochyena uses Tackle, doing almost nothing, and I finish it off. Alright, the slog that is the early game for Psychic types is over. Let's proceed with the playthrough. Now, one thing I should note here is that I am not going to heal. I need to keep Struggle until Petalburg Forest, where I can use it to defeat the Team Aqua Grunt and his Poochyena. Now, in most playthroughs, I really want to avoid backtracking, so I figured that I could make it all the way to Rustboro City and then heal there to get Confusion back. However, there's a problem with this because then I have to get by this bug catcher, and I did try to use the bag trick, but it is hard to time on 4 times game speed, and I still need to practice it. So he catches me here, and that's a problem because he has 2 Nincada. Now, these things have a lot of defense, which is a problem because Struggle deals physical damage, and Gardevoir is a modest Pokemon, and it does not have a good attack stat to start with. Looks like I'm doing around a third to the Nincada every turn, but it's going to be using Leech Life against me, which both drains my health and replenishes its health. Luckily for me though, the bug catchers have terrible AI, so they're only using Leech Life by chance. However, if they use Harden instead, then I'm just taking longer to knock the Nincada out anyways, giving it more chances to use Leech Life. By the time the first one goes down, I have almost lost half of my health. And then things get very close against the second one. However, at the critical moment, I am able to knock it out and survive on red health. Alright, so this early game has been pretty rough. However, I think I have cleared the worst parts of it. In Rustboro City, I can use the Poké Center to heal up and gain back all of my PP for Confusion. With this powerful special move, I can easily sweep through all of the trainers in Roxanne's gym for a little bit more experience, and that brings Gardevoir almost up to level 12. This is the slow growth rate for you. Some other Pokemon, if they have the fluctuating growth rate for example, would be level 16 by this point in the game. Anyways, I think that the fact that I have a great special stat is going to be more than enough for Roxanne, so I'm ready to face her. Geodude is up first, and it survives my Confusion. Luckily, misses Rock Tomb. Roxanne does use a potion, but I get the KO on the next turn. Okay, so time for Geodude number 2. It also survives, this time hitting Rock Tomb, but I am still faster. After all, her rocks are quite slow. She uses another potion, which is good so that she won't use one on the Nose Pass, and then I knock out her second Pokemon, moving on to her ace. So here I want to mention that she has a very strange turn order. I am faster than the Nose Pass by 1 speed, so I expected her to use Rock Tomb on the first turn, but instead she uses Harden. She follows it up with Rock Tomb, finally bringing my Gardevoir under the Nose Pass's speed, and now this thing is only going to use its other moves, no longer Rock Tomb. The AI considers that move a speed control move. So in this case, she goes for Block, followed by Tackle, Nose Pass takes self-inflicted damage, and obviously Gardevoir is able to take an easy win over the first gym leader. This was a 13 minute and 51 second split. Honestly, not what I was expecting when I first selected to do Gardevoir as a challenge on my channel. Normally, when I'm picking Pokemon, I just choose the Pokemon based on the aesthetic and their typing. I don't want to do like 5 Psychic types in a row, that would be really boring after all. And I thought that Gardevoir would be perfect for the occasion of my wedding. And yeah, it's pretty brutal in the early game, and things are just going to continue to slow down because, despite the fact I have a type advantage against Brawly, I have to defeat a Team Aqua Grunt to save Pico, and yes, this Team Aqua Grunt has a Poochyena. So I find myself a cocoon in the forest, and I spam out all of my PP once again. I guess this is also kind of wedding relevant. With Struggle again, I can defeat the Team Aqua Grunt, save Pico, and then I head south of Rustboro City to take on May. By the way, it's always fun to mention that in this battle, she has a Torkoal. Yes, there are mistakes even in Generation 3. Here I just want to mention that I'm going up against the Mudkip team, but honestly none of her teams stack up particularly well against a powerful Psychic type. At long last, Gardevoir is finally ready to get rolling. I catch myself all of my HM users that I'm going to need throughout the rest of the playthrough. I head to Dewford Town picking up the Silk Scarf, I deliver the letter to Steven, and then of course I head into Brawly's gym to take what is going to be one of the easiest victories over a gym leader. All of his Pokemon only have damage-dealing fighting-type moves. The Meditite, while it takes neutral damage from Confusion, only knows Focus Punch, and Confusion has 100% accuracy. And so yeah, he stands no chance against me. I don't even take a single hit point of damage, and I emerge with a quick second badge. I always find these challenges really interesting when the random trainers in the region cause the Pokemon more problems than the gym leaders. Honestly, that is more of an endorsement for Gardevoir though. For a regular playthrough, like catch a Ralts early on and use it. It's really good. Now while I progress to Slateport Beach, I just want to mention that here all of the trainers are very easy. But I still have a Dark-type problem because there are Team Aqua members with Carvanas in the museum. However, I want to show you all something that you might not be aware of. In Slateport City, if you head over to this building, you can talk to this guy, and he is a tutor who will teach your Pokemon the move Swagger. In this case, Double Team is absolutely useless, so I'm going to put Swagger in its place. Now as I go up against the Team Aqua Grunts in the museum, I can use this move to boost their attack as well as confuse them, and this is going to be my path to damage against the Dark types. Honestly, it is not a perfect strategy because Confusion only has a 50% chance to cause them to damage themselves, but luckily for me, I get what I need, and I'm able to defeat both of the grunts without a reset. So while Dark types have been causing problems for me, really all they're doing is slowing Gardevoir down. Overall, I still have no resets. Now I get another moveset upgrade by finishing the museum, because I can grab the TM for Thief, which I teach in the place of Teleport. On the next route of the game, I do additional training, I get to level 21, and here I learn Calm Mind in the place of Growl. I just want to emphasize how fantastic it is that Gardevoir gets this move. It boosts both of my best stats, and having a setup move like this is critical in a solo challenge. It is going to make me both more survivable in a lot of fights and improve my damage. Okay, so let's continue my training. I defeat a guitarist. He's obviously providing wedding music for me today. After that, I grab a helpful PP up, which could be useful later on, and then I go up against May. Against her, I'm going to try Calm Mind out for the first time. Now, I don't want to over set up with this move because that wastes time, so I only go up to +2, and with it, I can easily sweep with a series of one-hit KOs. Alright, so now that we've made it to Mauville City, I'm going to grab the bike, and then I'm going to train in the surrounding regions. Luckily now I have Thief that I can use against Dark types, and while this move isn't particularly good against them, at least I can just damage them directly. Now I just want to check in with my level and compare it to some other playthroughs I've done. Around Watson I'm usually somewhere around level 30, sometimes 31 or 32, but Gardevoir is only level 26. However, in this case it is going to learn Psychic, and I think that is going to make up for the fact that it is under-leveled. I grab the black glasses, which might be useful later on, teleport back to Mauville City, train against the trainers in the gym, and now it is time to face what is usually one of the hardest gym leaders in the early game. Let's face Watson. Now, one reason that he is incredibly hard to defeat in solo challenges is the fact that he loves paralysis tactics. This status is probably my least favorite status in the entire game because it both cuts your speed and makes you less consistent. And Watson has multiple ways of inflicting this status. The first way is that both his Magneton and his Manectric know Thunder Wave, and the second way is that his Electrike and Manectric have Static as an ability. However, Gardevoir is never going to be making contact, so this ability is completely eliminated from the equation today. The third way that Watson could paralyze me is if Voltorb uses Spark. However, it is not always going to paralyze me, and I have a Cherry Berry to heal the status condition, so I can just set up here until it paralyzes me. And then from there, I think I am going to be guaranteed the sweep. After getting +3, my health is pretty nice, and I figured that this was going to be enough damage to sweep. So let's just go for it. I still have a Cherry Berry just in case I don't one-hit, say, the Magneton. Obviously, the Voltorb goes down to 1 hit, as well as the Electrike, and now it is time to see if the Steel type will survive. And in this case, even with a not very effective Psychic, the answer is no, it goes down to a single hit. Up last is Manectric, but I have 5 more speed, so I hit with Psychic and finish Watson off. Alright, so finally, I have earned Watson's badge. And here I will just mention that the badge that I earned is the Dynamo badge, not the Dynamo badge. Thank you so much for helping me with the pronunciations in the comments. I really appreciate it. Also, that actually made me realize that it's not Tynamo, it's Tynamo, which does make more sense. Anyways, let's proceed because he also gives me the TM for Shockwave, which is finally a move that I'm going to be able to hit Dark types directly with for decent damage. By the way, the first ground Dark type was introduced in Generation 5, so Shockwave is going to cover all Dark types in this game. However, I want you to just hold on to the fact that I taught this move right now because it has implications for later in the playthrough. Now, I have made the comparison between Gardevoir and Alakazam Alakazam a lot in this video, but Alakazam is quite fast and Gardevoir is not, so the Dynamo badge does give me a nice 10% boost to my speed stat, which I think is going to be quite useful. Alright, so let's head up Mount Chimney to face Maxie. Up first is Mightyena. I love facing this thing with a special attacker because it's so nice when Intimidate does nothing to me. Shockwave does more than half, Mightyena lowers my accuracy, but that doesn't matter, so I knock his lead out, knock the Zubat out, and then move on to the Camerupt. Now I do have to hit this thing with Psychic, so I could miss, but in this case I don't, and I actually get the one hit, so that was a very easy battle. With it out of the way, I head into the Lava Ridge Gym to face the 4th Gym Leader. Alright, so I've mentioned this before, but setting up against Flannery is incredibly easy because her Numel is just terrible. Now it does go for its most powerful move against me, which is Overheat, however it does almost nothing to Gardevoir. This is great special defense for you. At +2, I figured that I would just go for the sweep, and I actually one-hit the Numel, the Slugma, and the Camerupt, and make it all the way to her Torkoal. However, it is very slow, so I move first, hit Psychic, and also get a one-hit. So that is another easy gym badge for Gardevoir. While it has been slowed down by dark types, every single gym has been a complete cakewalk up until this point. Alright, so let's backtrack through the map. I'm going to grab the Nugget, and then I'm going to head into the desert to pick up a rare candy. If you don't know where this thing is, just basically walk all the way to the right, line up on this tile, then walk straight down, talk to the rock, and grab the rare candy. You want to do this exactly like this so that you don't accidentally bump into the trainer. After that, it feels like I get to perform a wedding by smashing this rock and reuniting these two lovers. And then I head back to Petalburg City to spend some time with family in the battle against Norman. So here I need to mention the fact that I am not using a Person Berry against the Spinda, and I want to set up with Calm Mind. Obviously, this is the best strategy. However, I filmed this playthrough on May 15th, which is quite a while ago, and I didn't actually know that you could access the Person Berries that are just before Meteor Falls without Surf. Turns out there is actually a path underneath the building, like it's like a 3D sort of thing, where you can just walk behind the building and then walk over and grab the berries. I did not know that. I thought that you had to get Surf to get to them, so whoops. Anyways, I'm going to correct that in more recent playthroughs that should be coming to the channel around November. Anyways, in this case, I just snap out of confusion. The Spinda goes for Facade, and then I use Psychic with +3 and knock it out. Okay, so it is time to sweep. Of all of his Pokemon, the Slacking has the highest special defense, and honestly, it isn't very high, only 59. So in this case, I do manage to take out all of his Pokemon in a single hit from Psychic and earn myself another easy badge. Alright, so next I'm going to explore the power plant because I want to grab the TM for Thunderbolt. After all, this is a great power upgrade for Shockwave. By the way, I actually went all the way to the Weather Institute and defeated the trainers here before I realized that I had forgot to pick up the Thunderbolt TM. Luckily, I have an Abra which knows Teleport, so I can use this to head quickly back to Mauville City, grab the TM, and proceed with the playthrough. And the reason that I went back now instead of getting Fly first is just that I really want Thunderbolt for Winona. So it's not safe to set up against the Swablu because it knows Perish Song, so I knock it out in one hit with Thunderbolt. Next she sends in Tropius, and this thing is not very good, so I'm going to choose to set up here. I think that +2 should be enough, so now let's start our sweep. The Tropius goes down, Pelipper comes out, of course it is going to be annoying. I go for Calm Mind, anticipating to protect. It uses Supersonic, I hit myself, finally snap out and knock it out with Thunderbolt. By the way, I have a Pelipper playthrough planned for later in the year, so it is coming. Next is Skarmory, and luckily I take it out in a single hit, and all that's left is Altaria. In this case, Psychic does more than enough damage, so that is a 6th easy badge for Gardevoir. At this point, I think that I should compare with my previous playthrough, so just cover your ears if you haven't seen my Exploud video yet. Both of the Pokemon were able to make it to this point in the game with no resets. However, Exploud was under an hour of time at this point, whereas Gardevoir is just over an hour. I think that the slower time is exclusively because of the Dark types in the early game. If no mandatory trainers had Dark types, Gardevoir would have been faster than Exploud. And that is even with the slow growth rate. As we saw during the Exploud video, it was very close to clocking in with one of the best times yet, so Gardevoir is still on track for a high-ranked finish. On the next route, I grab all of the good berries. There are so many here. Then I grab some rare candies, and now it's time for the Magma Hideout to face Maxie. By the way, he can't really do anything to me if I have a Person Berry. I can just set up with Calm Mind. When the Mightyena uses Swagger, I just sweep his entire team. The same goes for Team Aqua admin Matt, and with him out of the way, I have made it to Tate Liza. Now if you're just watching along in the background, you won't have noticed that I taught my Gardevoir Hidden Power, but I do have it for this fight. Remember, it is a Dark type move. So, against Tate Liza, I have two primary targets. First of all, the Claydol, and then later on, the Solrock. These are their only two Pokemon that have non-Psychic type damage dealing moves. In Generation 3, the Dark type is a special type, so I set up once with Calm Mind to boost Hidden Power's effectiveness, and then I use it to knock the Claydol out in a single hit. Okay, so that is good. I've only sustained 1/3 damage. Now the Solrock is next, and the Xatu did set up Sunny Day for it. However, Hidden Power does more than enough, and I finish it off. So from here, it's going to be easy cleanup. I one-hit the Lunatone with Hidden Power, and maybe I'm even going to one-hit the Xatu. By the way, I know that the stage modifiers are not showing during this fight. It is because it is a double battle, and it is a little bit more complicated to program. Anyways, another easy win for Gardevoir. Continues rampaging through the game, absolutely crushing Team Magma in the Space Center, and then I crush Archie at the end of the plot line. With that, Rayquaza saves the day, no intro required, let's face Juan. Obviously here, I can just set up with Calm Mind and then sweep with a combination of Thunderbolt and Psychic. Alright, so I'm off to the league and I haven't reset once. This is feeling quite good. However, I will note that now Gardevoir is starting to get quite under-leveled. I am only level 49 coming out of the battle against Wally. So I decided to do a little bit of training up to level 50, which is over a damage rounding threshold, and with that, I think I am ready for the league. Let's try this. In this battle, I essentially only have one damage-dealing move, which is Thunderbolt. After all, Dark types take no damage from Psychic-type moves, and they resist Dark-type moves. And this is where I realized that I had made a significant flaw in my moveset plan for this playthrough. I really should have saved Shockwave for this battle, because the Mightyena loves to lower your accuracy with Sand Attack. I do think that earlier on I could have got by using Thief and say Secret Power to knock out Dark types, and then used Thunderbolt in the mid-game like I did in this playthrough. After that, I could replace it with Shockwave for this specific battle. Now you might think that that's a bad idea because then I won't have access to Thunderbolt for the rest of the league, especially with Wallace as the final trainer. However, with Gardevoir knowing Calm Mind as well as Psychic, I don't think it would have problems. Plus, you can just buy another Thunderbolt TM from the game corner. Okay, so I'm facing his Absol with -2 accuracy. That gives me a 60% chance to hit. By the way, facing all the grass types up until this moment with an electric move feels really bad. Today, Absol sets up Swords Dance, I miss, Rock Slide flinches me, and that gives Gardevoir its first reset. Okay, out of all the trainers in the region, it makes sense that it was against Sydney. So I want to quickly go over what my options are for this fight. I could teach Return, but that does not seem like a good idea after I get hit by Intimidate. Gardevoir's attack stat is 62, whereas its special attack stat is 185. I could let Gardevoir learn Hypnosis at level 51, but this move is really trash after Generation 1, and even there it's not very good. In my second battle against Sydney, my accuracy is so bad that by the time I'm facing the Shift Tree and it has set up some double teams, I only have a 16% chance to hit. As a result, this fight ends up being my second reset. Okay, so what can I do to make this battle better? Well, I can head to Victory Road and pick up the TM for Psychic. This move is not useful against Sydney at all, so I want to unlearn it and then relearn it after I've defeated him. That gives me one free move slot to utilize, and in this case I think taking Rest is going to be the best option, especially because the battle against Sydney is mostly coming down to a stall fest. Now I can stay alive for a lot longer in the battle, but unfortunately I get one more reset because Rest is just too slow. Okay, so I think I should use a Chesto Berry instead of the Citrus Berry. With +4, I still cannot one-hit the Shift Tree. Then I want to mention the two moves Cotton Spore and Torment, which are so annoying. The fact that I'm not moving first and I can't use Thunderbolt on back-to-back turns leads to another loss. Okay, let's just talk about the Dark type. This is basically the Troll type. The tactics that all of these Pokemon employ are so annoying. In addition to both Cotton Spore and Torment, they're using Sand Attack and Double Team. Now the fact that Gardevoir is struggling here makes a lot of sense. The Dark type was essentially invented to make the Psychic type less dominant. And clearly, Game Freak is pulling that off here. However, it is very key to note that all the resets I'm getting here are due to player error way earlier in the playthrough. If I just had Shockwave, this would be so much easier. If you ever see me in another playthrough holding on to a bad move for way too long, it is usually because I am remembering some painful experience like this. At long last, I only have -1 accuracy against Sydney's Absol. I hit it, and it goes down. Okay, so Gardevoir has made it past the first league member. However, Phoebe is next, and technically she has an advantage over me. However, I also have an advantage over her because I have Hidden Power Dark. In this case, I can use Calm Mind when the first Dusclops goes for Protect, and from here, I think that Hidden Power should be able to sweep. I knock out the Dusclops, her first and second Bayonet, and arrive at her final Dusclops. I go for Hidden Power once again, the Dusclops survives on a sliver, goes for Shadow Ball, gets a critical hit, and knocks Gardevoir out. Okay, so maybe what I should be doing here is setting up a second Calm Mind on the first Bayonet. That way my attack with Hidden Power will KO her Ace Dusclops. So I go for that, and then the Bayonet hits Shadow Ball, it gets a critical hit, and also knocks Gardevoir out. Are you kidding me? Okay, let's go into this fight again. What happens if they don't get a critical hit? In this case, I figured I didn't need the second turn of setup, so I just make it all the way to the final Dusclops. And then we are never going to know what happens if they don't get a critical hit, because this time I get the critical hit and finish her Dusclops off. After that, Sableye is the only Pokemon left, and of course it is easy to finish off. Now, going up against Glacia, you'll notice that I have replaced Hidden Power with Psychic. Her Furcilio loves to paralyze with Body Slam, and other than that, it really only sets up Hail. So here I can set up with Calm Mind using a Cherry Berry to counter the paralysis. Then, after that, I have Thunderbolt, and yeah, with it, I'm just going to sweep through the rest of Glacia's Pokemon. By the way, here I want to discuss Glalie. This thing should have been an Ice Dark type. Look at it. It looks so scary and intimidating. I think there also could be an argument made for Ice Ghost, but like Frostlass is introduced in the next generation and it makes sense as a ghost type. That's why I think that Glalie would be a great dark type as well, just because it kind of feels like part of the duo with the ghost type. Anyways, as anticipated, Glacia is no problem. I take an easy victory. So let's move on to Drake. Shelgon loves Protect, so I can set up Calm Mind and then go for Psychic, knocking it out in a single hit. Next, he sends in Flygon. I move first, hit with Psychic, and knock it out in a single turn. Okay, so it is time for his ace, Salamence. In this case, I do not get a one-hit. It survives on red, goes for Rock Slide, but it only does a quarter, and then I knock it out. Following this, he sends in Altaria, which also survives. If I had gone for +2, then I would have secured the one hit on all of his Pokemon, and that would have been much smoother. However, setting up for too long against the Shelgon can be risky because it knows Rock Tomb and can lower your speed. I don't want to be getting hit on every turn by all of his Pokemon. That is a sure way to lose in a solo challenge. So I finished the Altaria off, and now it's time for his last Pokemon, Kingdra. It survives on red too, which is quite annoying. Here I want to mention the liabilities of the slow growth rate. If I was, for example, the medium slow growth rate, I would be at a higher level, and I would have been able to secure one hits on all of these Pokemon. However, in this case, I survived Body Slam from Kingdra and managed to win. So Wallace should be easy, right? Well, Wailord goes for Double Edge, and it does almost half. Alright, maybe I don't want to be setting up here. I'm going to go for Thunderbolt and get the KO. Next is Tentacruel. It has massive special defense. As a result, I don't get the knockout. It goes for Sludge Bomb, which is physical and does neutral damage, taking Gardevoir into the yellow. Okay, so a Citrus Berry heals me a little bit. I wasn't thinking here. I use Thunderbolt again, Wallace heals, and I leave a free turn of setup on the table as a result. However, at least I do manage to take out the Tentacruel and move on to the Ludicolo. Now, this thing only knows special moves, so I figured that here was the best place to set up. At +3, it is starting to get too many double teams set up, so it's time to go for the knockouts now. I managed to hit, securing it, and from there, I am able to sweep my way to an easy victory as I anticipated. Gardevoir finishes the league with a time of 1 hour, 49 minutes, and 42 seconds, with 6 resets at level 55. This took 6 hours and 43 minutes of game time. Okay, so a sub 2 hour league finish is quite good. I have saved all of my rare candies to this point, which is very important for a slow growth rate Pokemon, so I can use 12 of them to go from level 56 all the way up to level 68 before Steven Stone. I'm going to continue in this fight with the philosophy of not setting up too much. Skarmory gives me a nice opening because it uses spikes and then Toxic. After that, I figure that it is time to sweep. With +2, Thunderbolt gets the KO, Psychic KO is the following Cradily, and then Steven sends in Metagross. For some reason, it's weird to me that electric moves do neutral damage to steel types. In this case, though, it survives my Thunderbolt and then goes for Meteor Mash, which knocks Gardevoir out. Okay, so it looks like we're going to need something like +4 to ensure that I get a KO against his ace. That should be no problem though, because I can set up against the Skarmory. Here I go to +3, then I use Resto Chesto strats to heal up, and I grab one more turn of setup against his Cradily while it uses Ingrain. On the following turn, I knock it out, and with that, I've made it back to the Metagross. And this time, my Thunderbolt secures the KO. However, up next is the Claydol, and I don't really have a good option against this thing. I am going to have to use Psychic. That takes it to yellow, it goes for Earthquake, and gets a critical hit, knocking Gardevoir out. There have been so many losses to critical hits in this playthrough. In the next battle, I make it back to the Claydol, this time with +5 instead. Not sure what I was thinking though, because this is not going to KO. It doesn't. Earthquake hits again, and this time Gardevoir survives on 1 hit point. With that, I am able to finish it off with Psychic and move on to the Aggron. Here, I redeem myself for a former misplay all the way back in my Jirachi playthrough, where I used Psychic against this thing. I should have been using Thunderbolt, and in this case, I get the knockout. Finally, the only Pokemon he has left is Armaldo. I go for Psychic, and it takes it down. Gardevoir clocks in with a first playthrough time of 1 hour, 54 minutes, and 8 seconds, with 8 resets at level 69. Nice. And a game time of 6 hours and 54 minutes. Alright, so overall I think these are quite good results. In terms of real time, it outperformed both Milotic as well as Exploud, but it wasn't able to pull off the performance of Crawdaunt. And so I want to talk about why I think that is the case. Number one, it has a lot of troubles with dark types, especially in the early game, and that really slows Gardevoir down. Number two, obviously I made a major mistake not saving Shockwave for later in the game, and I was punished heavily for that. When I choose to do a playthrough, I don't do that much planning, because I really like to go into these and see how I can solve it on the fly. It just doesn't seem as much fun to me if I sit down for like 4 hours and go through all of the options and really figure out exactly where I should be learning all of my moves. I like to save all of this planning and testing for after the first playthrough when I do a second playthrough. And eventually in the future, of course, I will be doing another Gardevoir playthrough. Maybe we'll find a Pokemon that would be really fun to use in a versus video with it. So if you have any options or you see anything in the tier list that you think would be a good candidate, let me know. Okay, so as we're reaching the end of the video, I do think that it is worth noting, though, that this thing cannot technically beat the game with my current rule set. It does have to use Double Team. However, I am just going to rank it regularly. I think that that is more fun. After all, it didn't use Double Team to get through any major battles. I was basically just spamming this out against wild Pokemon. Alright, so now let's look at Gardevoir's game time results. And in this case, they are predictably less good, courtesy of the slow growth rate. It was slower than both Crawdaunt and Exploud. However, this is still a very dominant performance. I think you can summarize this playthrough in a very simple way. Gardevoir is a dominant Pokemon that is completely unfazed unless it is facing a dark type, in which case it has all of the problems. Alright, so my fiance has officially evolved into my wife, and I am going to refer to her that way on the channel from now on. By the way, thank you so much for everyone who has stuck around with this channel over the last 3 years. Yes, I have been doing this for over 3 years now. A lot has changed, and I think that a lot is going to continue changing into the future. Next week we are heading back to Kanto to do a Geodude only playthrough, which I expect is going to be pretty rough. After all, it has a 4x weakness to both water types and grass types. Also, Geodude is like one of the slowest Pokemon ever, so it's going to get hit by a lot of moves. If you're curious, in the past I already did a Geodude playthrough, but I did it so long ago, so I figured that this thing deserves a reattempt. Like, subscribe, and ring the chime echo so you'll be notified when I post that video. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much, it means the world to me. And now, if you made it this far in the video, you are incredible. I'll see you in my next one.